Hello students, I welcome you to the topic on water pollution and its effects on food safety. To know this, we have to understand the terms what is water pollution and what is food quality. This topic will enable you to have insights into the sources of water pollution, effects of polluted water on the health, and also effects of water pollution on the food quality. So, the term water pollution means contamination of water. So, what does the contamination of water mean? Contamination is the effect of pollutants which will degrade the quality of water. So, from where do we get the water from? The water which we get would be from the water bodies, likewise rivers, ponds, lakes, from rain and also from sea. So, water pollution is defined as a contamination of water bodies like rivers, lakes and seas by fertilizers, sewage, pesticides or some toxic compounds which would be from ships or factories. So, food quality is another important manufacturing requirement. So, these two terms, water pollution and food quality, are interdependent because food quality, the processing or production of food, is in turn dependent on the water. So, any contamination which is found in water will inevitably have its effect on the food. So, as we all know, human body has 70% of water and the biosphere, the earth's surface, is also covered by 1/3 of water. This means water is required for mankind's survival. So, water is used for drinking, domestic purposes, which includes cleaning, bathing, washing clothes and many other day-to-day purposes, and also recreational purposes. So, water is also a vital resource for agriculture, manufacturing, transportation and also many other human activities. So, despite knowing its importance, this is the only poorly managed source in the world. So, WHO has recommended that whatever water which is intended for human consumption should be safe and wholesome. So, what does this safe and wholesome means? Water which has to be accepted for human consumption should be free from pathogenic agents, harmful chemical substances, pleasant to taste, and also it should be usable for domestic purposes. Only then water would be safe for consumption, whether it be for any of the purposes, likewise drinking, recreational purposes or domestic purposes. Now, water is said to be polluted if it does not fulfill all these criteria. Now, from where do we get the water from? So far we are discussing what is the importance of water, how it is being used in day-to-day life. So, to understand what are the main sources of water, herein we have 4 sources of water available on earth. One is surface water. Surface water would be as available as flowing water in the form of rivers and still water in the form of lakes, ponds or reservoirs. Next, we have another category, underground water, which includes wells and springs. Under third category of source, we have rainwater which comes from the atmosphere, and also the large water bodies, sea water would be the fourth category. But whatever the source may be, pure uncontaminated water does not occur in nature, in the sense it contains impurities. So, what are the impurities which are present in water? We have 2 kinds of impurities present in water. They are dissolved impurities and suspended impurities. As the word dissolved itself means that are inseparable by means of simple filtration process. So, dissolved impurities include gases, likewise oxygen, carbon dioxide, hydrogen sulfide, etc. And also we have inorganic salts. So, the moment I say salt, inorganic in nature, once it gets in contact with water, it is dissociated into ions. So, we have positively charged ions, likewise cations, namely calcium, magnesium, sodium ions, anions which are negatively charged ions, which includes carbonate ion, chloride ion, sulfate ion and etc. other anions. and also it has organic salts which are in the dissolved form. So, the very word organic means it has a carbon skeleton which may be from the debris of animals or plants. Next we have suspended impurities. Suspended impurities are separable by filtration processes. So, these also would be again inorganic compounds which may be clay and sand, and organic materials include oil globules, vegetables and animal materials, and also there are certain colloidal impurities in the form of coloring matter, amino acids and other organic waste. Apart from these, the suspended impurities also include microscopic matters, likewise bacteria, fungi as well as algae and other protozoans. So, now knowing the impurities, from where do we get these impurities from? We have to next understand what are the sources of the impurities. So, gases likewise oxygen, carbon dioxide are right away picked up from the atmosphere when the water is coming to earth in the form of rain. And in the next category, the organic impurities are introduced by the decomposition of plants and animals. Plants and animal remains, when they get decomposed, would get mixed up with the water. So, this introduces organic impurities. As well, when water is flowing through rocks and also from other soil particles, there are certain impurities which gets dissolved in it, which may also be either organic or inorganic in nature. And also as well, these are all the above three discussed sources are natural forms which would be right away picked up from the catchment area, whereas there are certain impurities which gets introduced in the water by contact with sewage or industrial waste. This sewage or industrial waste is man-made urbanization or industrialization process. So, these get introduced in the water and also would serve as one of the sources of contamination of water. So, ground and surface waters can be contaminated by several sources, which could be from either industrial area or the trade waste or agricultural runoff or sewage leakage. And also it is a nature of human being to throw any kind of physical pollutants into the water. So, it also accommodate physical pollutants, likewise some plastic bottles, plastic bags, etc. And also during the decomposition process, decomposition is mainly by bacterial organisms, as we all know. So, microbial pathogens also get introduced into water during this decay process. Man-made pollutants which are introduced into the water either by sewage or by the industrial waste or effluents would cause dangerous or serious health effects, and then they also cause imbalance in the ecosystem. So, any imbalance in the ecosystem will make survival of the other next higher up organisms troublesome. So, the most serious kind of pollution would be caused by only the human activity, which has been a result of either urbanization or industrialization. So, the sources of pollution resulting from sewage would include domestic wastage or domestic sewage. So, this domestic sewage comes kitchen, bathrooms or laundry sources. So, all the waste which get accumulated because of food preparation and dishwashing, also garbage, etc., these would be introduced in a way would be thrown out only through the disposal system, which includes water as a major ingredient or water as a major constituent. All the waste would be sent away. So, these contain the sewage, domestic sewage contains decomposable organic matter and also pathogenic agents, because all the vegetable waste or the plant waste or animal waste has the capacity to undergo decay. So, during the decomposing process we have pathogenic agents which contribute to it. So, this particular sewage effluent would contain decomposable organic matter and also the pathogenic agents. So, in India, if you see, Ganges is a holy river which is a sacred river for all the Hindus. So, it is estimated that around 200 million liters of water untreated sewage is being discharged into river Ganges every day. It accounts to, just imagine how much it accounts to the pollution of water. For the past 12 years, it has been demonstrated that fecal coliform count has gone up to 10 to the power of 8, that is the most probable number, wherein the fecal coliform count should not be there as per the standards of drinking water. But this has been introduced, and for the past 12 years it is being estimated that per 100 ml the count is around 10 to the power of 8, most probable number. This, once the bacteria starts growing in the water, what does? The bacteria also requires oxygen. The biological demand also has gone high, that is 40 mg per liter, which is the most polluted river in Varanasi. So, this is an example to understand how our water bodies are getting contaminated. This is only because of man-made pollution. So, next we have other pollutants. The source of pollutants majorly the industrial and then the trade waste, which may introduce the toxic agents, which may be accounting to the contamination from metal salts to complex organic chemicals. Toxic agents, which are complex organic chemicals, would be introduced by the industrial as well as the trade waste. Pollutant which may be introduced is during the refining of petroleum, oil is being introduced into the water, or even because of certain damages which are caused during the trading process in the sea. Once the oil gets mixed with water, it is inseparable. Toxic materials as well as oil is inseparable by simple boiling or filtration process. So, this will inevitably cause a damage to the ecosystem, because it will reduce the oxygen present in the oil, thereby the survival of the aquatic life becomes dangerous. And the use of bisulfate in the paper or pulp manufacturing, this would also cause a serious, that is, this will introduce the dioxins into the water, which has lethal effects on health of the population whom they use this particular water as a drinking source. And also agricultural pollutants, likewise the runoff from the fields or surface waters along with the pesticides or sediments, this will contain bacteria as well as organic matter, and also the salts, likewise nitrates and phosphates. And as I discussed, physical pollutants, indiscriminate dumping, likewise the solid waste, littering in the rivers and lakes, which includes aluminium, plastics, glass as well as cardboards. And radioactive substances are introduced as a source from the nuclear power plants. So, all these are considered hazardous to the mankind. So, this contamination can arise faulty distribution system, which may be due to leakage in the pipes, which may be in the water pipes as well as the drainage pipes. So, during this process of supply, the contaminants can be picked up, or during the storage process itself, if the containers are not clean and if they are not properly protected, that may also will have effect on the water pollution. So, in India, sewage is the most important contaminant when compared to the industrial waste. Sewage accounts to around 75% of surface water contamination, and 50% of the urban population has access to this sewage disposal system. So, we have to understand our role in maintaining the effects to reduce the water pollution, that is, not only the sewage has to be let right away into the waters, but it has to be ensured to be treated well before it is being diverted to the water sources. So, what are the effects of water pollution? So far we have discussed what are the sources of water pollution, how do the contaminants get into the water, and what are the sources in a way which contaminate the water bodies. Now, the effects of water pollution is by ingesting water is used by man either directly or indirectly. The very word directly means water is used for drinking purpose, and the indirect way of consumption would be either it is used for food growing, preparation or processing. So, directly the water is used for drinking, recreational purposes, wherein in case if the water is polluted, it will have all the skin ailments and also rashes. and direct drinking of contaminated water also will have the effect on the digestive system, which may be evident in the form of all the cholera and gastrointestinal disorders. So, indirect method of ingestion is by consuming the food which is raised with the polluted water. So, this may lead again to the diseases which has ill effects. Few examples of the diseases which can be caused by consuming contaminated water directly or food which has been contaminated because of using water from a contaminated source would be diarrhea, amoebiasis and also other GI disorders. Now, knowing the effects of water onto the health, let us also see how does it affect on the food quality. So, as I told you, food quality is a manufacturing requirement, and whoever the consumer is susceptible to any form of contamination during the manufacturing process, if contaminated water is used, then definitely the food quality has an impact on the food consumer. So, to understand, water is the lifeline of the food industry. So, the purpose of serving delicious as well as nutritious meals, not only being palatable, delicious meals when they are served, but if the poor source or unhygienic water is used, then the very means of serving these nutritious meals by the vendor is lost. So, it will leave that the food, in case if accepted from that outlet, would always be contaminated, and then it will lead to the health effects. So, in order to overcome this, we have to follow one of the 5 key principles of food hygiene which has been given by World Health Organization, which refers to use of safe water and raw material as one of its key principles among 5 which has been given by WHO. So, in India, if we look at the scenario, 80% of all the diseases would originate only from water, because it is a phenomenon that usually the mankind consider water as a granted resource, and then they use it for most of the food preparations as well as processings. In the sense, they consider the water it's safe for consumption, knowingly or unknowingly. So, this is also being used as an ingredient in many foods. So, as an not only as an ingredient, it has been used for growing, unloading the food, fluming, washing, brining, and also in ice manufacturing, wherein it is used right away in the juices, as well as in all the sanitation and cleaning procedures of the food contact surfaces. Water is the major ingredient. So, this is water is the only route by which the foods get contaminated by disease causing agents. So, access to adequate water for irrigation is also a raising concern in India. Not only in India, throughout the world, that is worldwide, contaminated water, existing of uncontaminated water is difficult. So, to meet this growing demand for irrigation water, non-conventional sources are often being used. So, in larger cities of developing countries, the application of industrial as well as municipal wastewater effluent for irrigation is a common practice. So, this is an unconventional resource. Whatever the water is being collected from the municipal effluent or the domestic effluent, it is being diverted for raising the vegetables as well as crops. So, what does this effect have by usage of this water? What are the effects which will have onto the food quality? This will introduce the source of heavy metals, likewise lead, copper, zinc and also cadmium, which are toxic to health. So, this extreme accumulation of heavy metals in agriculture soils through this wastewater will result in soil contamination. In turn, it would also be present at food level, at the crop level. So, once if these are consumed, then the elevated heavy metal take up will have threatening to not only to the food quality, and if they are consumed by the consumers, they also will have lethal effects onto life. Over a period of time, if we are consuming the same toxic material or the metal, that gets accumulated and that may be the result of carcinogenesis. So, raw water can be contaminated with the pathogens, usually as a consequence of either human or animal fecal material or from the runoff of contaminated water across the fecal materials or the animal waste. So, water organisms likewise, shellfish or many other varieties of fish, they have a capacity to strain water through their gills, and this will enable them to trap the microscopic plants or animals for food. So, fishes are dependent on the microorganisms, either microorganisms or the smaller fish. Now, if this water is contaminated with a disease causing bacteria, this could be consumed by the fish or shellfish. When eaten raw or partially cooked in turn by human beings, will definitely have their ill effects, and this will accumulate high levels of toxic substances. So, in addition to the increasing pressure to optimize, the government has started barring the water supplies resources because of the scarcity of water. Water as a drinking source is not really available. To overcome the scarcity of water, there is bar on the supply of water. To overcome this pressure, the optimization of utilization of water in the production facilities has become a potential for contamination of water, which is again reaching the food products and inevitably causing the contamination of the foods. So, the reasons why the water supply to the food business may not be safe could be either it may be due to temporary interruption or interruption of safety to the reticulated drinking water, or the supply source itself is not adequately treated, or it could be because of improper storage facilities. So, any of these three will have adverse effects on the food businesses who are supplying the foods which are unsafe for consumption, which may be due to use of contaminated water. Water which contains industrial domestic waste, infective or parasitic agents or chemicals is termed as non-potable water. So, the water which has to be consumed, which is safe as per the WHO recommendations, which is following the criteria of the WHO recommendations which we have seen in the first water pollution module, is considered as the potable water. So, other than that, if it has got infective agents, it is considered as a non-potable water. Because of the use of non-potable water, the highest foods which are at risk would be the ready to eat foods. So, usually the waterborne food contaminants which are present which can pose danger includes bacterial pathogens which may cause which would be either Salmonella or Shigella, which can cause fevers, likewise typhoid, and then viral pathogens likewise hepatitis may cause hepatitis, protozoans likewise Entamoeba histolytica may cause amoebiasis, and also chemical contaminants which could be because of incorrect use of pesticides or cross contamination of water with the sewage will inevitably cause high toxic levels of the metals in it. So, in India, food laws which are trying to regulate the food authorities or the food businesses would recommend to use only potable water for all the activities. So, the activities which are included under the food businesses would be washing food or the food ingredients with the potable water, use of potable water for cooking, either to add for food or to drinks, making of ice, cleaning of food contact surfaces, cleaning of food containers, and also for personal hygiene. All these would demand the use of potable water, and non-potable water can be used for the flours etc., wherein which does not come in contact with the food. It is impossible to use only potable water for all the purposes. So, even non-potable water can be used, but it would be only to the food contact with the surfaces which does not come in contact with the food. And also we have to ensure that before each use, only the containers which are approved for water storage has to be used, that is food grade containers. Not only that, use of containers previously which has used for storage of chemicals also would have ill effects. So, in case if water found to be contaminated, if some suspended impurities are found, so we have to ensure filtration of water through a clean cloth or a paper towel, and then we have to ensure proper coverage when the water is being stored in the vessels which has to be used for food production. Hand covers have to be used, and the water containers should always be kept above the ground level. They should be kept in cool position in order to prevent the multiplication of any bacteria, because if certain amount of heat is provided to the water, that becomes optimal for the growth of bacteria. That is wherein we have to leave it in the cool position, and also it should be mosquito proof. So, water can be made safe for drinking purpose. After filtration, it can be again subjected to boiling and also disinfection. So, it is important to note that contaminated fuel or toxic chemicals would not be made safe just by either boiling or disinfection, as already dealt. So, water can present risk not only to the food but also to the ecosystem. So, it is our duty to minimize the risk, to avoid unnecessary harm by ensuring that necessary control measures are in place. So, by this way we can protect our water sources, as well as we can maintain the food which is being in the quality which is being served to the consumers.